Live from the KHOU11 studios, it's Great Day Houston. And now, here's your host, Deborah Duncan.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Great Day. Okay, so the school bell has already sounded for some students. Other students will start hitting the books over the next few weeks. But the classroom isn't the only place they learn valuable lessons. Those lessons are being taught in every avenue, from the playground to social media. New York candidate for mayor Anthony Weiner taught us how tweeting or texting can impact future aspirations. Look at that. Okay, now, are you upset about that? Because it does look kind of good, okay? But in his case, it's actually called sexting. As a grown man, he is facing the consequences, but children might not understand how such an act could hurt innocent people, let alone themselves. Joining us with more on that issue and the other lessons kids learn that are not part of the curriculum, please welcome certified relationship and sex therapist Emily Diala and relationship expert Dr. Dia Von Young. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll let you know, if you have a relationship issue or question, give us a call now at 713-284-1055, 713-284-1055. Our therapist will take your calls in just a bit. And in the audience, remember that if there's an embarrassing question you need to ask, you start with, I have a friend who. That gets you out of everything. Okay, the whole sexting debate, which has, been going on ever since the first time around that he did it. But it's also something that we have seen kids take part in as well. So they might not understand the tools that they have in their hand. Let's start first with adults. Is it really that bad?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, it's something in fact, I recommend to my clients sometimes. I do think it's something that needs to be done carefully. I generally discourage sexting unless you're in a longer-term committed relationship, because there are a lot of risks involved as well.
Yeah, and also who you're sexting to is kind of the key. That's what Anthony Weiner got in trouble over.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to say this. Sexting is okay, provided that you understand that you cannot ever delete that once it goes out.
Yeah.
It is somewhere in cyberspace. If you're going to sex someone, make sure that they have as much to lose as you do.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Givers should be receivers as well, I say.
Yeah, all right, but we've seen this case where students have done things like this, and this becomes a whole nother arena and really can cross the line into legal issues as well.
It can, for kids, there absolutely should be no sexting. It can constitute child pornography, and that's something that both kids and parents need to be aware of. The parents need to be talking to their children about this, because there are legal issues that can come about as a result.
Yeah, all right. And then one of the questions we're going to ask in our Facebook question has to do with really what's considered cheating. We know we went through this with President Clinton when he just said, I did not have relations with that woman, because we had to define what the act really was. Is sexting really cheating, or does it take more than that to constitute cheating?
Let's go here with that question.
Okay.
First, define your relationship, then you will know if it's cheating. If you make an assumption that you are in a relationship and you're the only one that's aware of that, you probably have a problem. So, you probably have a problem. So start by defining, is this a relationship? And you need to ask that point-blank question, what is it that you expect of me? Are we committed? Often what we do is attach something like a title because we've been intimate, because we've spent $5 or $10 at Frenchie's. Well, okay, hopefully he took you somewhere better than that. But the bottom line is...
But of course, in the Weiner case, it was a pregnant wife at home.
That type of thing. So how can you assume someone is cheating on you when you haven't confirmed the status of your relationship?
Yeah, because oftentimes that can happen.
Right. I agree with that. You need to know what kind of relationship you're in and what boundaries you two decide as a couple that you want to set around that. But I think people who engage in this kind of stuff, as in the case with Weiner, there's a lot of distorted thinking that occurs in these kinds of cases. And so that's something to remember. They will come up with excuses or minimize or distort what they're really doing in an effort to make themselves seem less guilty. But, the fact is he was sending something with the sole intention of creating sexual arousal in another person. And in my opinion, I think that starts to toe the line.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
I
and
do.
I off-color joke when I said, well, it looks kind of good earlier, because I actually heard some women say, well, it's okay because at least he looked good. I mean, it's like...
But cheating doesn't begin there. Actually, cheating, if we're to use that terminology, we get it from being deceptive, from doing something that you would not want to get caught doing. And with someone that is married, or engaged or in a committed, defined committed relationship, the minute that you betray that trust, that's when it's cheating.
Yeah, yeah, or you have
That's
any
true.
kind of emotional connection to somebody, and
Right.
that's where it can be. All right, we're talking about the school bell ringing, so all kinds of things that kids will learn that are not part of the actual curriculum, but, you know, this is such a tough time for parents when they send their kids into school, but we have to remember that that is where kids learn some of the most valuable lessons of life. They learn how to integrate themselves into society, they learn how to stand up to a bully, they learn how to not be bullied, all kinds of things that we can learn on that playground. So the hard part is for us as parents not to try and shield our kids too much, but at the same time, not let them get hurt.
Can I say this, Emily, real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Kids have a lot more chronological real estate left than those of us that are of a certain age. You have to think, what is the odds of me being with Billy or with Jane or whomever you're dating 5 years from now? And how serious are they really taking me? Because at the end of the day, what causes this betrayal is a lack of commitment and a lack of respect for someone. In your 20s, for men, all the way up until your 30s, you don't even have respect for yourself. So ladies, I warn you, make sure that before you trust someone else with your reputation, you might want to give that a second thought.
I think you have an amen from the crowd there, Emily.
And, you know, to add to that, the one thing to remember with kids and with teenagers, their brains are not fully developed. They don't have the fully developed prefrontal cortex that full-grown adults have. And that's the area of the brain that's involved in decision-making, planning, thinking about consequences. That part just isn't completely developed. And so that's really where parents have to come in and help them make those decisions, because they're acting without really thinking of the consequences.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's not completely their fault.
Yeah, yeah. The key word you said was help them make decisions, because sometimes we make decisions for them.
Yeah.
I remember a psychologist once saying that their child had gotten his driver's license, and he said, "What time do I have to be home?" Because he had a curfew, and they said, "Be home at a reasonable hour." I said, well, what time is that?
Yeah.
Be home at a reasonable hour. And he kept saying, well, what time is that? Because normally parents say, you be home at 10 and da-da-da-da. And they said they were going to give him till midnight. They heard the key in the door at 10 o'clock. And the kid came rushing in, did I get in on time? Because what they did was put the onus on that child to make the decision. And a lot of times we don't know what decisions our children will make because we're too busy making it for them.
Exactly. I do think, especially as they're growing into older adolescents, it's good to give them a little bit of leeway. They need to make some mistakes from themselves. I mean, so that's the way we learn some of the best lessons, I think. But there needs to be always a level of involvement from the parents, too.
Yeah. There are a lot of kids who are looking forward to going back to school, a lot of kids who kind of slump and go, the bullying's going to start again. And so how to deal with the bullying there, because, again, you don't necessarily want to just remove your child. I have friends who literally have removed their children from school, and sometimes it's necessary.
Right.
But also there is a lot of value in working it out with the other party as well.
Well, self-bullying is something we don't address, and that's when we start beating up ourselves, wanting to fit in. We start acting out and doing behaviors because we want to be accepted. So as it relates to this subject of sexting, be careful that your daughter or your son isn't doing something to validate their self-esteem because they figure, well, you know what, I play football, look at my chest, it's nothing wrong with showing this. Or your daughter, okay, I've got some curves in the right spots now, let me be the topic of conversation. You have to ask your kid, is this really whom you want to be? Is this really how you want people to see you? Because to be quite frank, as with adults, you are not going to have an external solution to what's an internal problem. So parents, and as well as aunts, uncles, and friends, you are the first line for self-esteem for your kids.
Because it becomes desperation, really.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
On that line, we got a letter from a woman last week who was really concerned about the whole idea of designer clothes for your children. I remember I was babysitting some bad kids to get enough money to buy my Jordache jeans. Okay? So it's always been there. Always in society, it's been there to be able to have certain things to say, look at me, type of deal. But there is a line of where that's healthy, where that's not unhealthy. So can you kind of give give us some guidelines on that.
Sure. I mean, I think, you know, you want to help your child to feel good about themselves, and so you want them to be dressed appropriately. And now, using designer labels, I think it's important to have a dialogue with them about the fact that that's not going to do much for them in the long run. It will give them that brief momentary high of, oh, look what I have, but when they come home at night and they're sitting in their rooms alone and they're still not going to feel good about themselves, having the designer bag isn't going to do much for that.
Yeah.
So I think it's about trying to strike a balance between, you know, helping them feel good about themselves to an extent. You want your kid to be dressed appropriately, but not indulging them so much that they're then relying on that to feel good. You want the esteem to come from yourself, not from other or from external sources.
Right.
And another thing, in addition to what Emily is saying, is that as you start teaching your child about relatedness and relating to other people, the most important thing is you teach your child this one lesson. Don't worry about how other people see what you have on. They're going to forget what you wore, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So teach your children to be compassionate and respectful of other people, and that's going to give them the social brownie points that they're really looking for.
All right. Well, speaking of cheating earlier today on Facebook, we want to know, where do you draw the line when it comes to cheating? What if it was just sexting or an online relationship? Is that the same as really hooking up and doing the deed? Log on and let us know what cheating really means to you. We'll share some of your comments a little bit later on in the show. Our therapists are sticking around to take your calls. If you have a relationship question, just call us now at 713-284-1055, 713-284-1055, and our experts will do their best to guide you in the right direction.